Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series. I'm Nathanius, joined by Rotterdam, as we move on to the American portion of our Challenger for WCS Summer. And the sun has been shining bright, Kevin. We had a beautiful day outside yesterday. We finished the matches, went for a nice walk, but boy, oh boy, what better way to end the weekend than with more StarCraft.
I thought you were like, I was walking down the street and I met Astrea, who was in town by any coincidence, and then we talked about this match all along.
Oh, no.
No, none of that.
That's the Roddy story.
Okay.
You would be the person to be like, you know, Nate, I went to Starbucks to get the coffee, and who would have known? Drunken Boy was right there, told me all his builds. So sick.
Sipping on coffee all morning long.
Yeah,
it's crazy. No, Astrea is apparently going to be in town tomorrow. He let us know. It's going to be fun. We're going to kick things off with a TVP. Like you said, we've had a couple of very fun matches already.
This chat's okay. I have a thing I need to do. Let's talk about the format. We had 16 players qualify. 8 of them are going to advance from these groups of 4. So we're going to have our top 8 bracket. They're going to play for elimination. Top 4 get seeds WCS Summer, and of course, first place. Well, you get to be awesome and make more money. Lots of WCS points. And just as well to remind you, we've got a bunch of shows coming up. If you really want more StarCraft, American, European, whatever, we've got it. We're going to be here next weekend and the weekend after that, and the weekend after that, unless I've gone past June, in which case it's just the next couple of weekends. And should be really exciting, should be really fun. We're playing for a lot of money. We've got $10,000 per region in prize pool set up, $1,600 for first place with 200 WCS points. And as we all know, at the end of every year, someone is salty that they barely didn't qualify. Get those points here. You can do it right now.
We just went over that. For someone like Hero Marine, that's a really big loss in the group stage. It's only, maybe you can say, like 60 points that he misses, or 90 points, because winning this tournament with Zero in it is always going to be very difficult. But there were still a lot of points on the line, and we've seen plenty of people. Like in the past, we even had a draw once. We had a tie, right? Then we had to do an extra match, and sometimes it comes down to like 10 or 20 points at the end of the year. So these points do matter. I don't think that Sottorks or Astrea is particularly worried about WCS points, because for them to make it to BlizzCon, well, let's say that would be a little bit of a long shot. Like that would be perhaps a somewhat unrealistic dream, but hey, all dreams start somewhere, Nate. And
I think just the difference between like being third or first place, like for the top players and if any region, is really worth a lot to be able to get up there. But we're on to America, Group B today. And as we know, our American groups are all riddled with Terrans. So we've got a Terran versus Protoss to start off for you. It's going to be Sottorks versus Astrea. And then we're going to be bringing you Jon Snow versus Drunken Boy, who is actually a name in WCS or even just NA competitive StarCraft I haven't heard in quite a while, but he was around a very long time ago. We have our first lobby already put together for Sottorks and Astrea. Sottorks, a player that probably, I think people tuning in won't know who he is. Astrea has kind of had his bounds up and down in WCS, so people may be a little bit more familiar with him. Any lights you want to share as we get ready to jump into this?
If you play a lot of North American ladder, you'll see not Sottorks very often. He's somebody that just plays a lot of games. If you play every day at the same time slot, you're going to run into him 3, 4, 5, 6 times a ladder session, even if you do 20 games.
Do you need to talk? Do we need?
No, like it's been fun. Like in the beginning, I actually, like, because I've only been playing NA ladder for the last couple of weeks now, I was like, who's this Sottorks guy? And I was like, I keep playing him over and over and over again. But
much like sodium, it's recommended to try and limit your exposure to that. So I was just looking out for you, Kev.
No, it's actually it's been fun, and it's always fun for me to get a little more familiar with some of these guys that I normally don't play against very often. I do think that he's got his work cut out for him here. I also know that, like a couple of the European Terrans we saw this morning, he may not necessarily be the biggest fan of this matchup, Nate.
Yes. Well, we can talk a little bit more about that in a second as we introduce our first player in the bottom right, our red Terran, a newcomer to the World Championship Series. He is Sottorks.
Always fun to see a new face in this league of, in general, familiar faces. On the left top side, we're going to take a look at the main base of the Protoss. Has definitely been making a lot of noise in this region. Lately, he may not make Neep, but he's pretty damn good. It is Astrea.
Max Angel.
That's a great name.
The guy with the best name in WCS.
Well, I mean, Rob. Rob's got a great name, too.
Yeah. Well,
Robbie Plata.
That's true as well. Who was it? Was it Cuddle Bears, like Maximilian as well? I was like, God, those names always, they just sound really cool, you know?
I know, I'm disappointed in my parents' names.
It's like, have you ever met a guy named Maximilian who like didn't own a casino and have like a private army and just like kind of like secretly controlled a dark underworld? I don't know, I haven't.
Max Angel is actually, it almost feels like an anime name or something. It's like, that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I could see him channeling some Hammond into some zombie faces. Pretty hardcore.
It's a great name indeed. And he's also, what I love about Astrea, Nate, in general, that I don't think he's necessarily the same as almost all those other Protosses out there. He does a lot of cool stuff in different matchups where against Zerg he will just randomly build gateways inside of his main. He's like, no, I don't need wall-offs. I want them to link rush me. He's got very funny little move-outs. But I think if one thing that truly stood out in the previous season, well, not necessarily of Challenger, but I'm going back to WCS Winter, where Astrea had a phenomenal run. I mean, I know you were there to cast almost all of those games. He displayed some great understanding of Protoss versus Terran.
He's really good. Yeah. Coming back to the laugh I was having earlier, these guys were chatting up a little bit in the pre-game lobby, and the admin was doing his thing. He's like, players ready to go? And Sottorks didn't immediately respond. And I think Astrea was like, yeah, he's doing his pre-game StarCraft ritual. And Astrea says, yeah, mine is I just close my eyes and I just imagine Terran tears raining down. And that's how I prepare for my WCS match. So I think his strategies have been pretty sharp, and I agree with you, Kevin. Astrea plays some builds in PvT that I think Terran players would describe as tilting as well. So I kind of expect a little bit of that. I think we'll maybe get some chat aggro from this best of 3 as well.
I want to talk a little bit about the fact that Sottorks built his command center in the main base. Now, this is not something he always does. Definitely on some of the smaller maps like a Kairos or New Repugnancy or Cyber Forest, I can get behind this. I do think on a relatively bigger map like King's Cove, I don't think this is 100% necessary, because if Protoss truly wants to chrono boost out these units to be annoying early out, it actually hurts Protoss quite a bit as well. And in this way, he's slowing down his own economy. Now, this could also be him maybe feeling the pressure a little bit, being a tiny bit nervous. He's like, all right, the last thing I ever want to have happen to me in WCS is that the first game I can't even get my command center to go up, right? Like Astrea does something weird, he has units on my side of the map and I have to cancel my CC and it's going to be a disaster. He's like, no, let's just be safe. But obviously safe does mean that he's not having the economy that you would normally desire as a Protoss player.
Yeah, I will say as a follow-up to that, though, and I've always held this belief in StarCraft because of how difficult the game is and how many opportunities every player on both sides has. If you feel that you are coming into a matchup with a plan and execution that you think you can really beat your opponent with, and do you think that you want to guarantee yourself the ability to do that by making an economic concession at the start of the game? I don't mind it at all, right? He basically gets to not worry about the early game in that same way because he builds it on the high ground. And if that helps with his nerves coming in here as a first-time competitor, if it helps with the nerves and just, you know, the flow of his build order, not getting caught off guard by anything, then I don't mind the decision at all. So hopefully he brings us something nice. We get a quick supply drop on that depot, though, so maybe a little bit concerned about his supply flow with getting the next tank out.
Like, I can absolutely get behind that trade of thought. Like, if it's easier, if it makes you more comfortable, you can do it. But you can also take a look at it from the other side and be like, you're probably the underdog here, right? On the ladder, Astrea will always have a couple 100 points more than you do. You know that this is going to be very tough. He's, wow, yeah, he loves these little move outs, man. Like, against every Stargate opener, I faced this more than once myself. I love how he actually pulled a lot of SCVs. Is he faking it? What is happening over here? I don't know why he's being so...
Yeah, I think he was like, because he got spotted immediately, he's like, well, I'm just going to jabate him. But
no, I think he still wants to do it, but maybe he wanted to get the last tank here as well. I don't think it's a full-out SCV pool, obviously, because he's going up to 3 bases. But he often likes to make this move out where he gets like 1 or 2 bunkers there as well, and then he just tries to either keep Protoss on 2 bases or maybe force Protoss to take a really bad fight and be even forced to pull workers. But I'm surprised that he's staying at home. Like, it is a bigger map, don't get me wrong, so that makes some sense to me. But I feel like if this is what you wanted to do, you got to do it.
Yeah, interesting choices being made, to say the least. I don't mind a couple of Vikings to try and bully away the Phoenix, but the Phoenix build faster, and they do damage and kill those Vikings very well. Of course, Vikings, one of those few units that, despite being an armored unit, they don't take bonus damage from Phoenix, but they do not actually have armor, so the Phoenix to attack does its full damage to them.
One Phoenix does go down there, but at the cost of 8 SCVs on the side of Sottorks. I'm starting to get a little bit worried here for Sottorks, because if you take a look at his vision, he has absolutely zero map presence at this point, and that's why I would have also not minded the move out that much, because then at least, you know, he gets out there, he knows what he's going up against. At this point, he has no idea. Is he playing? Okay, he's going to throw down a scan, so he will at least see a couple of the tech buildings, and that's nice, but I feel like he's going to be pinned to his side of the map for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how he tries to get through this one. He's going to be able to grab both of these Widow Mines. Really nice. Great pickoff there for Astrea. And I do think some of this comes back to, as you were talking about, Astrea's definitely been a very good PvT player in the past. And so far from what we've seen, he's one of those guys I just hate running into on the ladder, honestly. Like, I don't know if you've ever done this, but like, if you're like, click to chat with someone that you just played with, and it shows you, you don't have to actually even be able to message them, but you can see whether they're in-game or not.
Yep.
And then you wait for it to say busy before you queue up again. It's just one of those people I can't beat him.
Does Astrea play a lot of NA ladder?
I don't know, but I have played him before, and it's never been fun. I haven't hit him in a long time, but...
A lot of these Phoenixes are very low on HP, by the way. One Phoenix does go down. The second one goes down there. Really good target fire. Wow, this is a crazy move by Astrea, and obviously absolutely not worth it. The only counter argument you can make there is say the Phoenix phase in the game was done. He was kind of done with them. Now, obviously, you can say like Phoenixes are always useful in shutting down drops. Like, this was not worth it. Don't get me wrong. In no universe was it worth it. But obviously, Astrea is already getting Storm. He has charge. He's most likely getting Blink as well.
I would have liked to see the Phoenix just go home and patrol.
No, of course, of course.
The only reason why that worries me is because we have...
His army is small, man. Astrea's army is small. He needs to land big storms, Nate.
Yeah, it's all about those storms right now. And he's got the High Templar there. Wow, the medevac's very far ahead of the army. Gets a feedback too. Ooh, nice. It's actually a good amount of energy on
but now the units are a little bit far forward as well. That is a very, very big storm. The tanks are forced to siege up very far away. And I do like this by Astrea as long as he keeps a couple of these High Templars alive.
Yeah, that was a really painful storm. But also losing the two medevacs immediately like that is really painful. Every little thing here counts so much. Like the 1-1 just finished, which is nice. So he's got basically the 1 upgrade advantage. Okay, those tank shots on the Zealots actually do a little bit. But you have to be so cautious because when you're dealing with charged Zealots, those siege tanks and those Widow Mines can work against you very quickly. So you really need to make sure that you keep your bio safe and your medevacs up to heal those units.
You know, he's got a couple Widow Mines, but he lost 4 Widow Mines already in this game. Imagine if he has 4 more mines here. Then it becomes incredibly tough for these Zealots to ever achieve anything. But at least Sottorks gets a cancel on the 4th base. And I do really believe that getting all those Phoenixes was a real momentum shifter. Look at Sottorks. He's only out there on the map. He's feeling confident. He's going to pick up a couple of bio-units. Drop on the High Templar? Or what is...
Okay, well...
Go for the High Templar then, I guess, right? Why is he...
Does he not have enough for Storm? Okay, yeah, that's what I was waiting for. Ouch.
That didn't really work out. Now he just left his 3 tanks completely exposed as well. Yeah. He's barely winning the fight against those gateway units. He does get the Archon. I mean, maybe against all these Zealots, you can say the tanks are not super useful, but that was kind of odd, wasn't it?
yes, it was. So 2-2 starts up on the Forges, getting chrono boosted, but 2-2 is actually already on the way for Sottorks. So, I mean, you're talking about things that both of the players definitely doing right. I mean, upgrade game looks good. Despite the 3rd base now being set up for our Terran, he's got his 4th command center on the way, and that Nexus as well. The denial on that means that the 4th bases should be relatively close to the 2 players. Of course, he's going to have to move the command center out at some point, but I like the setup. I like the direction that it's going in. Sottorks also just finished his Ghost Academy, so he'll have a tool to help deal with those High Templars. This medevac comes in and gets struck down. Yeah,
there simply wasn't a lot of HP on that medevac, and it flew straight into a cannon. Love that High Templar just dropped the storm there, but it won't be enough to save it. You know, if it wasn't for the fact that Astrea has Storm here, I'd be like, well, this is looking really bad for Protoss. You know, everything is way too close across the board. I like the composition of this Terran army already. He's got a lot of mines and it's going to be excellent against the Zealots, a couple Liberators. But obviously with Storm, we know that everything can turn upside down in the blink of an eye, especially if you got a War Prism in the mix as well. And we can trust Astrea to always have a War Prism in the mix with a couple of those High Templars. So, still anybody's game. You could say maybe this is starting to look better and better for Astrea if he gets those next level upgrades. I'd like to see a Robo Bay though, wouldn't you?
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, I've never been a crazy big fan of Colossus. and I don't necessarily mind it being very storm-oriented with a lot of gateway units, but I think because the Terran player is equal or ahead on upgrades, you kind of need to force the Vikings to come out, and the Colossus is definitely good at that, unless you're trying to make a fast transition to Stargate, which I don't think works if the Terran player is building still this many Marines and Ghosts.
The bio is very clumped up. There is a War Prism in the mix. Obviously, there are High Templars inside of this War Prism. There are more High Templars spread out everywhere, by the way. We've got so many. 14 High Templars. Liberator's going to siege up. There are a couple Ghosts in the mix, Nate, but 14 High Templars? How are you going to EMP all of those?
Maximum overkill here, Rotterdam, because even though we get a couple of very nice, sweet EMPs, as you were saying, there's still plenty of love to be spread around by these High Templar in those size storms. So the Liberator siege zones, they've basically reached the 4th, but he's not killing it yet, and that's going to be the deciding moment. Stalkers are going to come forward, pick those off. Big storm on the bio, bringing in the War Prism from the backside, going to be able to drop 3 of the High Templar, and the War Prism gets picked off with those High Templar.
Wow.
And he's actually pushing this back now towards the 4th. Once again, more Liberators showing up. Astrea's got to do something quick.
Yeah, there's another Ghost coming in. He could land an EMP on those High Templars, even if they didn't have Storm yet. A couple of these Widow Mines, Nate, haven't even fired yet. They haven't even fired yet. I don't think he needs to unburrow all of them.
I mean, I wouldn't unburrow any of them.
I'm like, he's got an Observer. Where is it? Take a look at where the Observer is of Astrea. It's really funny. Look what...
Noise! There goes my hero.
The emote is like, everything is clear over here, guys. Got an ops around me. There's absolutely nothing to see. That was a great fight by Sottorks, even though he's still down in supply. And obviously, in the end, maybe he lost a few too many units. I don't think he had to unburrow all of those mines.
Well, hey, he's got his 4th planet too, Roddy. And with 3-3 on the way.
And the 14 High Templars are now 5 High Templars. There's still no Robo Bay. Like this Terran just casually getting up to 4 Immortals.
EMP. Oh, he gets both. Wow, wow. Fusion core and 2 more starports. I'm loving it.
With advanced ballistics, I'm actually starting to believe a
yeah.
little bit. He did a really good job, I think, in utilizing his Liberators and keeping a close eye on that Prism. And sure, a High Templar or 2 got out and landed storms, but he was right on the money when it came to gunning down that Prism, and actually did a really good job against that army on the left side. You know, Nate, I'm generally impressed so far with how well the underdog is doing against Astrea.
Yeah, no, Sottorks has definitely demonstrated a lot of really good signs of a core understanding of Terran versus Protoss, and honestly, I feel like with the nerfs, I did expect him to really fall on his face a bit, because that's really what happens when you start to come into these tournaments and you don't have the experience, but still going to be a tough game for him to pull out. He's not at advanced ballistics yet. He has the starports, he has the fusion core, but needs to make that next step forward. Ooh, nice scan and snipe, by the way. Gets a steady targeting. 1 High Templar and 2. Wow. I like it. Yeah, gets a couple High Templar there. Really, really good control on those Ghosts. The only thing that makes me a little bit scared is Astrea has a good bit of money, and he's now spent it. Okay, so he's got his supply basically capped out. Sottorks, it's got a little bit more room to grow. So if he moves out without advanced ballistics, you know, he's limiting a bit of his tools. Although he's catching all these random High Templar in the field.
Yeah, there's still 9 of them left though, and we know you only need 1 or 2 storms. The Prism on the left side, the Marines steaming forward. They get the War Prism, they get the High Templar. Yeah, that's a good storm, but actually doesn't kill that many units. Sottorks is playing one hell of a game here. There is a little bit of a counterattack in the bottom side, so now I think Sottorks got to be careful. He just dropped the Mew in the face of Astrea. Well, there must have been a misclick. Guess he tried to scan there, see if there's any High Templars.
Yeah.
Gonna eat another storm. The Zealots are doing a lot of damage on the other side of the map.
Rallied out units don't even kill the Zealots. They just get a few of the Stalkers and they keep moving. Gets another EMP on some of the High Templar, but he needs to actually be able to shoot at this Nexus to accomplish what he came here to do. Getting the Robo kill is really nice, though. It's going to come in. There's the blink for the Stalkers with the Zealots charging in to get rid of the Liberators. They are all going to fall. The Widow Mines are dead, and this is really the huge pain point for Terran versus Protoss. As you get into this situation, you're out on the map, a bunch of Zealots roll in, clean out a mineral line or 2, and suddenly, after the fight's over, you're like, why can't I afford to rebuild my army? Oh yeah, because I didn't have anything stopping 6 Zealots from killing 20 SCVs during that fight.
Colossus is on the way, Thermal Lens is on the way with +3 as well. One of the Robos went down. It felt that Sottorks should have waited 25 seconds, 30 seconds there.
Wait for Liberator range.
Exactly, and get a slightly better defensive setup, maybe with a bunker. It's going to drop once again on top of High Templars and a random Zealot. He's going to be able to clean this up. But the thing is, Astrea went into High Templar tech so early in this game that he's been able to afford losing all of these High Templars just because he's been having access to them for the last 10 minutes.
Yup.
He lost 23 High Templars and he still got 6 active on the map.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. Man, just going back to the Liberator thing, though. Liberator range, Protoss really doesn't have a good answer to ranged Liberators without going into Tempest. And just being able to force your opponent to take so much time to make that transition is really one of the biggest things about what makes them strong, outside of the fact that they melt any ground army.
He still doesn't have it, by the way. Did he lose the tech lab that was researching it?
Yeah, so it seems.
That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, he was researching it, so yeah, that was, I guess that was the tech lab that got sniped.
Well, more Zealots are going to go to town on these SCVs, and things are going from bad to worse for Sottorks, who definitely put up one hell of a fight here against Astrea. A person that's not just good, that we don't just expect in Challenger, but actually had an amazing run in WCS Winter, the North American part that is. I think he finished 5th in the end, if I recall that correctly. He at least made it to the offline finals. So it was a very, very impressive showing by Astrea, and since then everybody kind of knows what he's capable of. And the young underdog in Sottorks definitely made him work for it here on the King's Cove.
Yeah, Advanced Ballistics is going to start up again, but I think one thing that we can generally agree upon is there's not a crazy amount of
Bio.
Well, there's not a crazy amount of like things he could do to just come back in a TVP like this, especially since Astrea isn't just building this big army. Look at his map vision. He's spread out pylons everywhere. Dark Shrine, he's getting Observer speed, War Prism speed. He's also dropped a bunch of cannons and shield batteries at his bases because he's just saying, look, how could I lose this game? He's like, how could the Terran come back? Maybe a Doom drop? That's really it, right? And that's not going to happen because he can see everything.
Astrea has a lot of money in the bank as well, so even if this fight does not go as good as perhaps
he's a rich
it should,
yeah,
he's going to be okay. I like the whole position here. It's like, you want to come forward, eat my thermal lens, eat these lasers, and he can always decide to blink forward as well if he really wants and get a Liberator or two. That's exactly what he does. He's going to bait these units forward. There's still a couple High Templars in the back as well.
That's got to be so demoralizing, by the way, that you land all these sick EMPs. You're like, yeah, took out 7 High Templar, easy. And then there's like 6 more. You're like, oh, dear God.
Yeah, I think it's the counterattacks is really where it went wrong for Sottorks in this game. I think he played awesome. It's just the few Zealots that ran by. Yep. Those are the ones that decided the outcome of this game. He immediately lost almost all of his economy. Astrea's is having some fun right now. He's even getting Shadow Strike. And I know it's a good upgrade and all, but he can pretty much A-move, put a prism behind his army and then warp in a round of Zealots whenever you lose some units, and he's going to be more than okay.
What's the meme that people say, Kev, with the warp in follow-up during the fight is like he'll fight with like 140 army supply or something?
I've never heard of that meme, but I am familiar with the scenario.
Yeah, yeah. But the joke that the Terrans make is that you have the extra 20 supply if you just warp in as you lose units.
Well, this planetary is going to be at least kept safe for now by these Liberators. Astrea really wants to get up this ramp. He's trying to pressure it a little bit more right now.
Yeah, that ramp may be the only place you really can't go. But I guess eventually, since he has waited so very long, the inevitable outcome would be that there would be enough Liberators and his ground army actually cannot break him. So yes, start the fleet bacon, get a couple more Stargates. Instead, he's still just chrono boosting DT Blink.
Yep, and he's running by with Dark Templars as well, so Dark Templars are doing some damage in the natural. At least they were before they were taken out. There was a DT killing SCVs here. I think Sottorks knows as well. He's just hoping for the magical fight with Liberators, and he does have a lot of them right now, Nate, but he just doesn't really have...
He's going to crest over 160 supply again soon, so he's got the money to start a couple waves more of units.
He's low on the medevacs though, that's one big problem. Actually, he's got 6 of them. He's going to be able to heal up this army a little bit. I mean, Astrea's really hanging in there for dear life. It feels like an unfair battle, right? Because Astrea's got all the money in the world and he's got all the map vision in the world, but Sottorks is just not giving up without a fight. And he still technically has an army that can do some serious damage. The problem is, it's not a healthy army. A lot of it has been injured already. A lot of these Liberators took some damage before. So I have a hard time believing that this army can survive forever.
Yeah, the Liberators don't do anything against photon cannons either, so the army will have to step forward to break this position. Exposing him a little bit to the storms, another one does go down. And actually, honestly, doesn't hit too much. We have Astrea attacking into 6 Liberators. Yeah. Is he trying to lose this?
I don't know what he just did there. He's got 4,700 minerals in the bank. Well, here
16 Stalkers.
Okay, now he can do this again, but he's going to be a little bit careful. If he loses all of these stocks as well and the Colossus, he drop a couple of storms. But Nate, those are...
I need to tell Blizzard to set this stream for mature audiences only, because that was one of the most disgusting train wrecks I've ever seen in my entire life.
It feels good to be back in WCS NA Challenger, though. We had some magic yesterday, and it just continues right now. I love it. He got the job. He got the job done there in the end, Nate. It doesn't always have to be pretty, as long as it works.
Was throwing away your whole army so you could warp in 20 Dark Templar part of your plan?
Yes. Of course. I mean, that was actually a really fun game. Of course, in the end, maybe it got a bit silly and it felt unfair because Astrea had everything and had all the money in the world. But up to that point, especially early on, I kind of liked where Sottorks was going. I would have loved to see him make the tank
yeah,
move
he should have
out,
just
though.
moved out with those tanks.
Yes, he loves that.
He didn't have anything other than the Phoenix, and he had enough Marines to cover them, too.
Yep, and then you build it like a bunker or two, you build a missile turret. Like, I've seen him do that a lot of times, because I've gone Phoenixes against him a couple times as well. And I think that's a really scary push, and I think he's very good in executing it. Maybe because it got revealed immediately, like you said, like the Phoenixes were right there when the army left, but you gotta kind of prepare for that, right? Because if you're playing against Astrea, it's a hard time imagining that you can just run to the other side of the map and the Phoenixes are like, oh no, sorry, we never saw it coming. Like, what else would the Phoenix be doing, right? Obviously, when you go up against somebody who's as good as this Protoss, they will always be watching.
Yes, yes, they will.
This map is smaller, so if it's Stargate again, Nate, maybe.
Yeah, I can see it.
He can do the push.
I don't hate it. All right, they're doing the ready check. Sottorks is ready to rock and roll, and as soon as Astrea confirms, we'll jump into game number 2. But yeah, no, Sottorks definitely demonstrated a really good understanding of like the way that he needed to set up his army and everything. Really the bane of all Terran players in late game TVP. One of the biggest, most frustrating things is when the Prism like just slips inside your main base, kills all your production while you're maxed, or in that case, he just didn't have like. Then you could put up like a depot wall or something. You don't have to.
It would help a lot. I honestly believe if he had that depot wall, because the fort was a planetary anyway, so that's going to be safe, right?
Yes.
It's the 4 or 5 zealots that ran into that third base, that canceled advanced ballistics, and just killed 25, 30 SCVs out of nowhere.
The weakness in TVP late game is not like your expansions that you're taking, because the planetary does a lot to protect those, and your army usually has to be out on the map in TVP. But when they get inside, like there's a few zealots in your main base, or your third, or your natural. The bases that you would think are supposed to be more tucked in, those are the juiciest, most vulnerable ones. Because if a couple of Marines come out, like if you don't have a whole wave together, like 5 zealots are going to kill your Marines, and then they're going to get to work on the SCVs.
But hey, a good showing though. I think that's really nice.
I mean, I thought his plan, like his build, didn't look bad, despite them not going for the attack. Like he was equal or ahead on upgrades, which doesn't really happen in Terran versus Protoss. And he made his Ghost transition at a great time too. And I would have said that his Liberator range transition was really good as well, if it weren't for the fact that, of course, it was delayed by that run by. So a lot of good things if he can pick it up here in game number 2, maintain his composure. I think he's got a good shot at it. Astrea definitely gets a little bit of a confidence boost. He probably laughed with us, to be honest, at the end of that game with the number of his forces that we saw drop off. But
I mean, if you can afford it, you may as well be a little reckless, right?
Yeah. It's possible he also just wanted to, like, you know, is pulling the old what will break first, your spirit or your body type thing. It's like, if I emotionally break my opponent in the first game, I won't even have to worry about him in map 2.
Well, in map 2, things might actually play out a little different. Now, think back of the start of King's Cove real quick, guys. Obviously, Command Center was built on the high ground. I do feel that if you want to do that on King's Cove, you absolutely got to do that on New Repugnancy. And if he does that on New Repugnancy, Nate, this second gateway that Astrea is going for shouldn't be the worst thing in the world, as long as obviously Sottorks scouts it in time and preferably gets a bunker on top of that ramp as quickly as possible. Or you factory, but whatever you do, keep those Protoss units outside of your base.
Yeah, this is one of those builds that we've seen even in like GSL. You have a silly time trying to hold this if you don't go for a bunker. And if you just do like a regular 1-Rex, Reaper expand, you don't SCV scout, you don't build a bunker blindly. We've seen tons of Terran players get absolutely thrashed by these openings where, you know, that probe is going to be back. We're going to see a couple of Stalkers probably roll up too with by the time that Zealot hits, and it's going to be really painful and very, very difficult to defend.
What I do love there by Astrea is like, I'm really trying to block your natural, and Sottorks is like, no, go away, probe, I just want to expand here. It's like, no, I'm trying to block. Okay, you can have it, you know, in the end, because I don't want to lose my probe. And then Sottorks is like, yay, drop the CC on the low ground.
Ooh,
and that's when Astrea is like, that's exactly what I wanted you to do.
But you see this Zealot, and the alarm bells should be going off, because there's really only one scenario where the Protoss rallies a Zealot across the map if you didn't proxy them or something, and it is this double gateway.
I think at this point you cancel the CC. He tried to get a bunker up, but the Stalker was already there. I really think you have to cancel the CC.
Cancel immediately. Yeah. He doesn't have anything to defend. His factory's halfway done.
I mean, the worst thing is that he doesn't have anything to keep this bunker alive, Nate. If two Stalkers start showing up, that's a lot of dead SCVs.
Yep. Cancel the CC, and not just because it's like, oh, maybe I'll save it, but cancel it so that you can start rebuilding it. Because unless Astrea makes a colossal error, this command center is not going to be completed. Like 0% chance. You have to make a huge mistake. This is one of the reasons why Protoss do this build. And we have the next couple of units over there. Warp gate starting up now too. Like, nope, there's finally the cancel. So I say, I agree with you. You should cancel it immediately if you realize you've been had, because he could have already been like, you know,
halfway there.
Maybe halfway there for a new one already.
No, absolutely. That's a bit unfortunate. I mean, this is one of those moments where you can say, like, welcome to the big leagues, right? Game 1, you play it safe, and it's like, oh, that was not needed at all. You know what? Game 2, I'm going to be a little more greedy, because I actually think I played quite well. And bam, and then you get punished for it the most when you didn't scout properly either. The Reaper does grab itself a probe, so that's obviously quite nice. The biggest problem now for Sottorks, I feel, is that he's going to be stuck on what he currently is. Man, this is a successful Reaper. Getting all these probes to not mine and getting 2 kills.
It's going ham.
Do you think that... Ah, that's very unfortunate, losing the Reaper, because that's the only thing that he had that was out on the map.
Yep, and now we're going to move on to the next phase with Blink coming in, and we don't have a robotics facility, but I'm wondering if he'll try to squeeze a sentry out when Warp Gate is done, so he can maybe do some Blink shenanigans. Okay, there's the robo, so it should time out all right.
If Sottorks is thinking of maybe moving out with, let's say, 12, 40 Marines and then 2 siege tanks, Astrea is going to blink in the main base, he's going to snipe a whole bunch of SCVs, and then he can always still recall, or of course just utilize those Stalkers in the middle of the map to shave units off one by one. No matter how you...
his next tank was also really badly delayed because he didn't have the supply available. It's one of those things that we don't talk about very often, but when it comes to these builds, you know, your muscle memory, playing StarCraft, you know your strategy, you get a feel for when you do certain things, and just having that CC canceled, you're like, oh my god, right, that 15 supply I would normally have extra at this point was never there. I need to build this depot, but you actually, it's not like you were floating money, so you don't even know that you don't necessarily even have the money to build that and your units at the same time, so it just gets all sorts of complicated and difficult. And that Zealot, by the way, tucked in the back, you could see as soon as this space was going to be taken.
Yep, and obviously the Stalkers there also saw that there is obviously a tank on the high ground. Absorbing 1 shot is not that big of a deal as long as you don't lose your units. So that's really nice. This is some good information by Astrea, and right now it would normally be quite hard for him to figure out exactly what's going on, because he doesn't have an observer, he doesn't have a sentry, so he can't go for a hallucination yet. What he does have is a lot of Stalkers. And you know what's very nice, Nate? I can only assume that he's going to go charge almost immediately. He's still got this gateway. You know how nice that is to still have rapid warp-ins on the other side of the map? That's crazy.
Yeah. Here we go. He's going to land the Viking, bring the Marines and the tanks out. Some SCVs getting pulled. Try and push the Stalkers back, and he's going to try and roll on up to that base. But we've already got Zealots starting to be warped in.
Yeah, but those Zealots...
the timer for charge now.
Those Zealots are not going to have charge yet. It's all about the kiting here of Astrea, and so far it's very good.
He's killed several Marines on the way here. He's really taken the wind out of the sails from Sottorks.
Yeah, that's a lot of Marines going down already, and obviously the more Marines fall, the worse and worse it gets for our Terran push here. The Viking takes a lot of shots as well. Now you can get a couple of these SCVs, so there won't be any bunkers. There is a war prison behind it as well, Nate. Wow, it was a lot of Marines.
Now,
Suddenly it's not that many Marines anymore.
The 2 landed Vikings against Stalkers actually really add in a lot of damage to help support the siege tanks and make it hard to dive. But yeah, there's the blink in play as well as the fact that charge is almost done, and the Vikings are a little bit less good against Zealots.
There is a lot of Stalkers going down in the end there, actually. I thought I was going to go a little bit better, but like you said, the Vikings...
he has time to get bunkers up.
Yep. And even if he gets the bunkers up, what is he going to put inside of it? The Vikings? Would be cool, but it's not going to happen. Liberators start showing up as well. but charge is almost done.
Good suggestion, Kev. I'll make sure to tell the team that we need landed Vikings and bunkers. I'm game. Let's do it.
I mean, I love how he's got 3 bunkers here for 4 Marines. Obviously, it's going to be very hard to reinforce. The Stalkers are being active in the middle of the map. They're cutting off the reinforcements. And yeah, this looks very perhaps scary and dicey for Astrea, but I think he knows with charge, and he's got an Immortal. He's going to be able to take care of this. What are the tanks doing? They're moving even closer. Recall was used? Did he just recall? Okay, he did.
I like the tanks being moved into the Liberation Zone, so it's a little more
no,
punishing to try and blink on top of them. But
He's just going to come in from every angle. I would say just get a few more Zealots, right, and send the Zealots first.
Zealots all day.
Yep. See, supply block. Yeah, he is a tiny bit. And he's going to lose a couple probes real soon. A few Zealots have just been warped in. Astrea's going to go for it right now. He's going to come in from multiple angles.
Boy. Oh my god, this is one of those weird things. The tanks unsieged and sieged during the fight, so they don't actually shoot at all. And the Zealots and Stalkers just come in and kill everything. And yeah, that's it. By the way, pylon on the other side of the map, lull, so can very easily reinforce since that warp gate you were talking about is still there too.
There
doesn't even need to siege the prism.
There is an observer that's going to see what exactly is there as well. He could do that, but I think Astrea is maybe a tiny bit concerned. You know, if Astrea doesn't do anything, Nate, it's actually not that bad for Sottorks, because they're even in workers at this point. That push went on for a very long time. There is a Liberator that's going to siege up in the main base, maybe grab like 1 or 2 probes. No, it's shooting at the Stalker.
Focus is 1 probe there, but yeah, losing the Liberator for that, not so great.
Back of the main base, we've got a Warp Prism showing up, something that we've seen a couple of times today, and that's gonna hurt, because yes, maybe economically you could say it's not that bad for Sottorks. The problem is, upgrade-wise, it is. It's Blink and Charge. Let's take a look at the Terran upgrade, shall we?
I don't know if the Zealot even attacked there, but 2 SCVs died just from the splash dropping it right on top of them.
Do you like that upgrade tab, Nate?
I mean, yeah, well, when you're playing mech, you don't have too many upgrades for a while, but then you realize, oh, Sottorks has barracks and he's starting Stim.
No, he's not playing mech.
No, he's not playing mech. Astute observation, Rotterdam.
Unless he may as well, if he loses his tech labs, he may be like, you know what? More tanks! The last thing I'll do of it, Warp Prism just comes back again. I feel like I'm watching a highlight clip of like, what just happened in this game?
Yeah, we got instant replay, guys.
That's literally what this felt like. It came in from the exact same angle as my camera was still the same position as well.
This Warp Prism is just bullying at this point. Yeah, that's oof. I love it too. Like, just recognizing, he's like, yeah, just drop it in the mineral line, tank the shot, pick it back up. Don't even need to lose the Zealots. His unit retention has been disgusting, to say the least. And he still has the Stalkers chilling at the 3rd, too. So he's like, yeah, if a command center ever just happens to find its way over here, I'll be ready for it.
I must say, what I'm most impressed with in this game by Astrea is like how many... Ooh, our Prism does go down. That's not the thing I'm most impressed with.
Ouch, owie.
He can actually afford it, guys. He's done a really, really good job up to this point.
I love that supply depot skin.
I'm glad you love it. But I must say, he did an awesome, awesome, awesome job with his Stalkers in the middle of the map. Because that push of Sottorks really did look quite intimidating. And if those 3 bunkers do finish up, and you put 12 Marines inside of it, then suddenly a couple Zealots. Oh no. Oh, not like this.
Not like this.
There's so many Stalkers here, by the way.
This is terrifying.
Well, he actually might get up.
Okay.
That was very weird. Now there is a forward blink, and one matter of fact, we'll take a couple shots.
That whole thing just, I don't know.
No,
okay.
that...
Let's forget that happened.
By the way, the gateway's still up and running. Do you think that Sottorks ever wondered where that first Stalker came from? He's like, man.
No, he didn't. He just assumed that.
He's like Kronos, man. Chrono Boost is so
like,
sick.
Oh yeah, well, you know, in StarCraft 3, they realized pylons were kind of dumb, so they just warp wherever they want now. And he's like, I just assume it came out of nowhere. So.
He's going to be able to get his little 3-base economy up and running. And he's finally going to get Stim, Nate. 11 minutes into the game, Stim will finish up. And that obviously gives a little more potential into this army of Sottorks, where, you know, in a way, Sottorks actually still has a pretty good chance in this game. Now, obviously, he needs to avoid the storms at all costs. And that is a lot easier said than done. I'm aware of it. He doesn't have any ghosts this game. But if he would get a good fight where the tanks would pick up the High Templars, he absolutely has a fighting chance.
Yeah. It's still a very scary army, regardless of everything that's happened prior to this point. I will
maybe tanks on the high ground?
Yeah, this is going to mostly come down to, I think, the tanks zoning out the High Templar. That's the most important thing here, because it's going to boil down to just a few storms. Whether they land or not is going to really impact the outcome of this fight. And already that front line gets chewed apart. And now the rest of the army is coming to flank from behind. The Zealot drags the mine shot over the tanks, too. And Astrea is just going to wipe the floor with the rest of this army. GG! First series here for our Americas, going in favor of Astrea with a 2-0.
I thought maybe if he would get the tanks on the high ground there around the curve, right? That's actually a really sweet spot.
That's not a bad spot at all, but you have to get there. The observer saw as well from like that high ground area, like by where the rocks are, and then the army was like, okay, yeah, let's come up here, pick off a unit or two, and don't let him get into that position.
Yeah, but to his defense, there were 8 high Templars, so it is very, very likely that
Astrea really likes to build lots of high Templar.
Yeah, that 1 or 2 storms were always going to connect there, and obviously this game was not won or lost by that push there. It wasn't won or lost by that very first push he made against the Blink Stalkers of Astrea. It was the very beginning. It was how much his commencement was delayed, how he had to cancel it. He didn't scout, and this was the worst case scenario. Astrea doing, you know, I don't want to call it the max specs because this is obviously very different, right? This is like the old school. No, the max specs before max specs became a thing.
That build's like the one that was happening like all last year in the crazy proxy
meta. The Koreans loved it as well.
The proxy second gateway build, which is really hard to hold with Reaper Expand if you don't scout it.
If you don't scout, that's how Turkey Dano beat Seoul once upon a time. The legendary second gateway.
I just remember it's burned into my mind. Like, I think SOS or someone did it to TY and GSL last year, and I was just like...
On the purple map in the left bottom side?
I think it was on a map that reminded me of New Repugnancy, to be honest. But yeah, it was just like one of those builds that everyone kept doing. I'm like, TY's smart. He'll find a way. Dies to it immediately. I'm like, no.
It's like at one point you have to, it's always like the moment of acceptance, right? It's like, am I willing to cancel my command set here? Can I save it? It's like, no, you cannot. Like if you don't have the bunker immediately, if you cannot push the Zealot back, if you don't know it's coming, you just got to give up on it immediately and immediately rebuild. And that would just simply be a lot better. But hey, pretty good first series by Sottorks, and he still has another shot in the lower bracket.
He's not out of the group. So, with that being said, take another look at the schedule as we've got coming up next. Nathan, I've been dying for some Zerg play today. Can I please see some goopy creep consume the map? It's coming up next. Jon Snow vs. Drunken Boy and WCS.